Welcome to the Less Stressed Life podcast. This is your host, Krista Bigler, private practice integrative nutritionist, helping people across the U.S. reverse digestive issues, eczema, and autoimmunity via phone and video consult. To learn more, visit lessstressednutrition.com. Now, on to the show. Alrighty, so today I have Jonathan Frederick, and Jonathan is a fellow podcast host, yes, of the Heart Healthy Hustle podcast, yeah. So, I mean, if you were looking at his bio right now, you'd see, like I am, that he just truly wants to help people with their physical well-being, etc. So really, he does have this passion for helping people live healthfully while they pursue their passion, which is really where I think the basis of his podcast comes in. Like, how do you have a business and not kill yourself, right? Or how do you work? How do you do things you're passionate about, which we can really go sometimes and hustle, and then also start to get some burnout. And actually, that's a huge piece sort of in medicine that can happen. But Jonathan's background is that he went to school for exercise science, did pre-physical therapy, has worked in chiropractic, has worked as a medical x-ray person, has worked in spinal rehab. So really all the physical pieces. So we're going to talk to him a lot about body therapies. And then he's got some insights on how the emotional piece ties into the physical piece, and how people really need to support this physical side in order for their overall health to improve. So I'm excited to talk about this whole topic. Welcome, Jonathan.
Thank you, Krista. I'm excited to be with you guys, and stay tuned because we're going to have a killer interview.
Cool. So let's talk big picture. When we say the word body therapy, what do we mean by that? What is body therapy?
Well, it really depends. I mean, if you break it down from body and therapy, we're talking about caring for the human body and the physical aspects. Body therapy can be, there's so many different avenues. I'm not an MD, so I'm not the person to speak on that directly. However, my experience is something I'm more than happy to share all about. And I've had, anything from a deep tissue massage to extensive chiropractic work, traction, physiotherapies, all different types of things, electric stim, all this stuff to work with my body and work around my injuries so that I can live as best as possible.
So we were talking off air about one way that I talk through this a little bit with clients and talk to them about how it's important that they get structural things and body, like physical pieces in line, is that we picture of a triangle, and we think about health, not just being in a silo, which as we sometimes consider, but having different elements. And so I think nutrition, I'm a little biased, but I think nutrition is a huge piece, right? Diet and
Agreed.
Fueling ourselves and all that side. And then the emotions are a huge piece of it. And it's kind of a misconception that this podcast is all about emotions, and it's not, but it is how all of it fits together, really. Mm-hmm. And how we all we can have these physical and structural stressors. And that's the other piece, is the structural piece. So sometimes there are structural pieces. If you're doing a lot of chiropractic care, you see that, because that's part of the discussion there, is that those bones being slightly shifted, subluxations could be pressing on nervous system. So if we think about how structure is so important, those are some things I think of. But you have a lot more experience in that area. Can you give us some stories of things? I think you had said maybe you want to just share your background a little bit more with us.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like you mentioned in the intro, I studied exercise science, and I was pre-physical therapy, and I was very proactive in my undergrad studies. I was focused on understanding health in a comprehensive way, not just passing my tests in classes. And I struggled. I was not an awesome student, but I did pretty well. I was a smart guy. When it came down to the wire, I would typically pull A's and B's, sometimes fail and get D's as well, and have to retake courses. So that was all present. But in terms of my little bit of my background in this area, I was a pole vaulter in high school, so that kind of jacked my right shoulder a little bit out of whack, if you will. If you're not familiar with what pole vaulting is, it's known as the most technical sport in the world. It's in the Olympics. It's where they run with a pole. Basically, it's a fiberglass pole typically nowadays, and you run down toward what's called the pit. And all the technique and everything is there, and you just jump into the pole bends, and it launches you up over a target fiberglass pole that you try to clear and not touch. So I was doing that for a few years in high school, and I also got really into bodybuilding around that same time, because I found out that I had what I thought at the time was scoliosis, which is, an S curve or abnormal curvature of your spine. And I I'll share with you guys openly because this is more of a health-focused podcast. I struggled with a couple things growing up. I remember as a little boy, I actually used to have excessive flatulence. Okay, so that was something that people would always pick on me for, to be like, oh, why are you always farting? I was like, look, I'm not. This is just my body does this. And so after I started getting treated with chiropractic, things were getting back in alignment. That was like stuff like that just stops happening, and you take it for granted. Health is really important, and physical health is so key. But yeah, back to a bit of my background with this. After I got out of school, I went and I served as a spinal rehab specialist, and my duties included a plethora of things, but mainly I worked with traction and putting people through modalities to realign their spine permanently, so that after they would get adjusted from the chiropractor, they would work with me, and then we would work on helping their spine to be in proper alignment for the long term, and not just, snap, crackle, pop, you're on your way. Because I know there's a lot of misconception around chiropractic, unfortunately. And honestly, there's a lot of, well, I don't need to say that, but yeah, the rehab specialist was awesome. And then I got my certification in as a medical x-ray tech. And I tell you, even in my own young body, I'm 27 at the time. And Krista, when I got the x-rays done, I was only 25, 26. And yet I still had some serious spinal trauma. I'm talking about pinch nerve. I'm talking about like my spine was literally out of alignment. We measured it, and it was actually incredibly motivating for me to see inside, to say, wow, even just my spine itself is like this. I wonder what else I could work on to improve.
Okay, so that was how you kind of had that aha moment, really, where you saw that. You make me think of, so a couple things. I want to hear more about like what traction looks like for those of us that don't really know completely. Like I have kind of some preconceived notions on what I think traction is, but I'd love to hear like a picture of what that looks like. And basically you're saying that the old school thought with chiropractic is that come and then come back and then come back, basically. And you're trying to prolong and improve the overall treatment, decrease inflammation at the site, and really get that adjustment to really stick, which is, I've heard this go about from a couple different ways. I used to see in fact, I didn't see any chiropractic till I met my husband in college at all, because our teachers in college were just anti-chiropractic, which was kind of silly. But so I didn't know anything about it, honestly, before that. And then afterwards, I went to a guy where you after you got adjusted, you went and laid in a room and you kind of let things move for a while. And then I've also trained alongside chiropractors for some different types of modalities and therapies. And they always talk about the importance of nutrition for really holding an adjustment. So I'm just kind of curious on your thoughts on that. And then if you could paint a picture of traction for us.
Yeah, so I'll tackle the traction first. So traction itself is basically if you picture pulling a rubber band apart and then it kind of returns to how it was. What we would focus on is not just putting a permanent stretch into somebody's body. That would not be pleasant, and yeah, that wouldn't work. So what traction did and does is it allows people to maintain that adjustment. You're exactly right. It maintains the adjustment so that they can live their life more optimally long term in between their visits to the chiropractor. And the goal is ultimately to provide a healthier nerve flow to all the organs in the body, and everything is affected. To put it in simple terms, all the nerves are affected, all of your organs in the body, all the systems are affected by the nerve flow. That's where all that electric energy is literally coming from. And so if that's blocked or impeded, it's like a fire hose only having a small little spigot to come out of, and it's just not healthy. You want the nerve flow to be like a highway instead of like a tiny little spigot just trickling. And unfortunately, these nerves affect everything. Okay, my grandfather, passed away from diabetes and some other things, and your pancreas is a direct player in diabetes. And so if your nerve flow is pinched off to the pancreas starting at age 35 because you tripped and fell at a family gathering, and you just kind of play it off as no big deal and you never get it checked out, unfortunately, it actually could cause a premature passing away or just a lesser quality of life long term, to no fault of that person, except maybe they didn't realize it. And so that's why I'm so passionate about chiropractic. I'm not a chiropractor, so I would definitely check with them about that. But my experience, that's what I've seen. And secondly, you have to remember that chiropractic is a business. So I don't know, you mentioned like a little bit of your experience there, Krista. So what for me, I've noticed with chiropractic is each one does some weird stuff. Like, I'll just be honest, and it's not a knock on any profession, but it's just true. Like, I don't know how much standing on the gigahertz device is going to help your feet. Like, maybe it's literally just nothing. You know what I'm saying? There are some things that I think, because it's a business, that chiropractors try out, and myself, I could create a device and then I could market it to chiropractors and tell them it's a life-changing device and they could buy it from me. And I'm not in a place that I should be doing that, but I could. So my point is, like, yeah, I would recommend, being careful with chiropractors. I do believe there are a lot of gimmicky things out there, but the chiropractic I'm talking about would be people who really have a passion for seeing others live well.
Oh yeah, totally. And honestly, that's in every field. There's always little things in every field. So it's really like any specialty. It's finding someone that really works for you. But let's step back and talk big picture. So, we were kind of just talking about your training is really on body work, sort of, in some way. So let's just talk about the importance of body therapy, like massage, like recovering properly, and even diet as a adjunct to recovering properly. Like, how does all that fit together? Why is that all important?
Sure. So with recovery, one of the biggest things with, just diet and all of that, all of it ties together, as you know. Without proper nutrition in between your exercise bouts, things like that, specifically if they're high intensity, you're not going to be, it's like mistreating your body. I mean, you're not going to be optimally functioning. And for me, like I mentioned, I'm 27. I'm still very young. I'm not stupid. I know I'm young, and hopefully if you're listening and you're in your late 40s, or mid 30s, whatever age you're listening, you're still very young. But when it comes to the physical body, around age 30, 35, you start to notice it takes a little longer to recover from a workout. Maybe that was 25 for you. I don't know. But for me, it's, coming up in the next 4 or 5 years here. And so what I did was I was really big into exercise and just being healthy and working out. And I would work out very intense, like high intensity workouts. So what I needed to do was find ways to treat myself in between each bout, or, occasionally, like doing some foam rolling, myofascial release work, stuff like that is a really easy thing you can do for yourself in between. And then being proactive about getting worked on in between, and really goes to a mindset thing of being willing to invest in yourself. So many of my peers being, I think with millennials, it's a little bit easier for them to say yes to a massage or something like that. But even for me, it was hard for me to justify that. So I have to look at, like, why? Like, do I not think I'm worth it? But then it goes deeper, right? It goes even deeper to hearing the tape roll scratch at 3 a.m. because my mom was trying to make ends meet when I was a kid, selling books online, and hearing that and feeling like I owe everything to her for that, which, both my parents work super hard. But that's a visceral picture of why it's hard to say yes to spending money, even when it's important as your health. And so I believe that for everyone to really live optimally, you should be focusing on your physical health because, not to neglect the other areas, of course. This is really to facilitate a healthier joining, like you mentioned with that triangle, Krista, for all the 3 points to line up more effectively and more optimally, if you will.
Okay. So, Jonathan, before I move on to like some other pieces of this, just to talk about body therapy overall, we threw out the word traction, so you kind of define that for us, but I don't know if anyone knows completely what physiotherapy is and I thought maybe you could define that for us and kind of how you've used it in practice before.
So when I was a rehab specialist, we would implement some physiotherapy, which is not physical therapy. Physiotherapy is more of, exercising with exercise balls and doing some balance work and doing things like that, more things that apply to your everyday life. Occupational therapists also often use physiotherapy techniques. Something that we would do was called, stim. And that would do, basically you put the stim pads on, you can get these yourself, by the way, at like Walmart, but you basically put that on the skin right over the area that's affected. That facilitates muscle contractions, the exact location of the pads, and that draws blood flow to the area. So if it's an inflamed area, it's an injured area, stim may be something that you want to check into. Again, this is all my opinion. Take it with a grain of salt.
Got it. Okay. So we talked about stim, bringing blood flow to the area, probably some of the similar things with like massage, but just taking,
So
go ahead.
If I can talk about massage for a sec. Okay. So this is huge. Like it's probably the most like, get a massage. Great. Oh, I'll feel better. No, like there's so many reasons why a deep tissue massage is so good for you. For me, I'll get one probably every 3 months. I say that, but it's usually once or twice a year. And I try to go for at least an hour so they can really work on all the areas that are affected, because boy, does that time fly, even though most of it hurts. You want them to go deep. You want them to break up all of the scar tissue, because we all are walking around with a crap ton of scar tissue. And especially if you work out like strength training or weightlifting, gymnasts, whatever it may be. So one thing you can do right away, whether you're living with your roommates or your partner or your husband or wife, you can take a quick thumb massage to your traps, and just a quick gentle massage, and making sure it's a great thing to do as like a quick trade-off, even if it's only 10 seconds. That actually releases hormones that cause you a calming side effect in your body. So that's something you can try tonight. Especially, for me in the future, what I want to do, I would love to come home and just do that. And I'm talking literally 10 seconds. It doesn't have to be like a 10-minute ordeal where I'm tired, I don't feel like doing this. And it really does make a difference. Your conversations are more relaxed, takes the edge off, if you will. So try that instead of the beer next time.
Interesting. So you're taking your thumb and massaging your by your trapezius, right? So on the front. Go ahead and walk us through that, since this is audio.
Yeah, for sure. So if you have, say you sit down on a chair, just knees bent at 90 degrees, then you have the person you're going to massage sit down right in front of you. Maybe they're on the floor, so that their shoulders. A lot of times trapeze, people think of traps as your shoulders. So where you grab someone on the shoulder and say, hey pal, what's up? Like that exact area is what I'm talking about. So the back, with them facing away from you, take both of your hands and just massage like what a typical massage would look like, rotating your thumbs in a circle right on the traps there. And you can, what I like to do is I like to squeeze my hands as well in conjunction with that, and it really provides a really nice, relaxing, quick massage that just kind of calms people down.
Yeah. So, I mean, to get someone to do that, there's got to be some...
So here's the thing. I always recommend doing it first, and then the reciprocation may or may not come. So do it as a gift, and then the person may say, and like I said, 10 seconds. It's not, oh, can you give me a massage? It's going to take 15 minutes. Like everybody wants to say that they love doing that for their lover, but most people are like tired. They don't feel like doing it, which I get. So I think does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, I think that answers it.
Great.
And it kind of ties us into the next question that we wanted to talk about, which is really about being gracious and having good perspective. I mean, you mentioned earlier about being willingness to invest in yourself. And you mentioned that there's a difference sometimes in different generations. And I mean, the more I work with clients in different generations, the more I see differences in kind of how they treat themselves, how much they say that they have issues with certain things like that. So I definitely see some of those generational pieces as well. But you drew some conclusions.
What's an example of that?
Well, I definitely could agree with you that if you're about 30 to 45, you care more about like preventative and self-care than if you're a little bit older. You tend to be kind of the mindset that I can just live with this because this is normal, a little bit. Like we're becoming more dissatisfied with things earlier on and doing more to kind of deal with it earlier on, I guess you could say. That's kind of a little bit of what I'm seeing. Yeah. So, but I know that for you and the message that you promote, it's really about keeping the mental status in check while trying to help others. So let's talk about gratitude, perspective, and how that can all impact total health and physical health. Because I've been talking to a lot of people lately about how it feels that we harbor kind of negative bad things, or we harbor negative attitudes or whatever, and it starts to affect our overall physical well-being and how we feel. Have you seen that as well?
Absolutely. I'm going to share a quote with you guys that I recently heard that changed my perspective on this. So forgiveness is not about justice. It's about freedom.
Yeah. So
let that soak in. And then after that soaks in, I want to share a story with you. I have a story for you and your listeners. So let me see here. I lost 3 grandparents to health issues as a child. So I got some time with all of them, which was great. And each and every one of them, they lived a fantastic life, but their exits were they were fairly upsetting due to the diseases and the health issues that ultimately took them. And so what that did was it instilled in me at a young age the non-option that health is. And so I see that as a gift in that sense. I turned that into a gift, and their life, all 3 of their lives was a huge gift. And I'm very grateful for them and appreciate all that they've done to impact me and my family. So I started focusing, though, or pretty early on the human body and movement, wellness, exercising, and bodybuilding. I'm a skinny guy naturally, very skinny. Even in 10th grade, I was very, very skinny. I was just getting into my height, always a bit shorter. And, the benefits and life improvements I've experienced from dialing in my physical health is something that I want everybody to experience. So understanding, obviously, some people deal with autoimmune diseases. I'm sensitive to the things someone may not have control over. But I always encourage people to ask, what do you have control over health-wise? And focus on that, obviously excluding tragic circumstances, with disease and things. But I always try to work on that to the best of your ability. And I see it personally as a moral responsibility for myself, and so that I can give and be there for my family. And after my studies and everything, I have my own personal health, experience with the health concerns. I see it as an exciting challenge, like every day. I had, obviously I mentioned the unhealthy curves in my spine and what that was doing to my body. And honestly, I had some back pain and knots and things that shouldn't have been there. It was affecting my everyday life and my energy levels. And I'll touch on the mental aspect in just a second. But the thing that's really interesting, when I wasn't able to afford chiropractic after college at the time, I got hired as a rehab specialist. So I worked with the doctor, and I was treated 3 times per week as an employee perk. So kind of instead of providing us health benefits, that was the thing that we got, was 3 times a week treatments, full gamut. So after I resigned from that position, I was still not able to afford that doctor. So I bartered with him some video marketing services. We're talking at this point over $5,000 worth of care has been bartered in exchange for treatments, and or treatments in exchange for marketing services to his business. And we're great friends to this day. So I that to share with you guys, there's really not any excuse financially. I know it's hard. I don't have kids, so I don't know how hard that can be. But like I mentioned before, the way I grew up, frugality is really important to me to this day. But there's an area where I believe it's worth really investing in your health.
Forgiveness is not about justice; it's about freedom. And so I think we can either harbor our angers and whatnot, which can kind of manifest into worse. I see it happen all the time. I mean, your attitude is really a reflection of your overall health, unfortunately. Yeah. So letting that go, I mean, I can just think of personal experience. I had this conversation on a podcast the other day. It was like we were talking all about emotions and coming from bad backgrounds, and how, you are 100% responsible for things going forward. Like, life didn't happen to you. You are in control of life. So you can choose to steer that boat a little bit different way. And really, I think what you were getting at is it's really about a perspective. Do I care enough about myself to invest in XYZ thing in my health, right?
For sure. And another thing with the attitude, mental illness is I'm not talking on that. So if you deal with that, obviously, that's really tragic. And, I don't speak to that because I don't experience it and I don't know what it's like. But I recently lost a friend to suicide, actually, less than a month ago, and he was only 25. So I'm really passionate about mental health, and physical health directly correlates with your mental health, your spiritual health, your emotional health is all intertwined. So what's the importance of gratitude and having a healthy perspective? Well, gratitude facilitates that healthy perspective. Oh, shut up, gratitude, attitude. We all know this. Well, gratitude or appreciation, I like that word better, appreciation. They're not exactly the same thing as being thankful, because you can say, oh, I'm thankful for today. I'm thankful my lights turned on, and you can go through the list. It may feel petty, but you really are thankful. Oh, okay, this is good. I'm thankful for this. But that isn't the same. Appreciation is an emotion, and that causes physical changes in your actual body. So when you appreciate the fact that your young son or young daughter, or for me, it's my nieces, they run up to you and they say, oh, Uncle John. They haven't seen me for a month, and they run up to me and they hug me and laugh and get really excited, I literally am just flooded with all of these positive emotions, and like, not to mention the hormonal release of oxytocin, and just from being hugged and from giving hugs and showing love to them and my family, it's so impactful. And just realizing every day there's so much to appreciate right here and now. One of the things that I noticed that was an unhealthy trend with my, my since passed friend, rest his soul, was the way he communicated. He had so many gifts, and I strive to remember him by good things and the good positive aspects of his life. He was a very gifted guy, and I'm so grateful I had time to know him. Unfortunately, towards the end, many of his ways of communicating were just so, it was an illness. It really was, because it was so dark and filled with such false truth, like no truth to it whatsoever, didn't even really add up. But I will add to that, he was struggling with an autoimmune disease that did have a huge effect on his life and every aspect of his life. It was very tragic. But, that being said, I see appreciation in seeing what are the things that I'm winning at. Did I get up today? Did I actually did I make my bed? Did I have the ability to make my bed? Like, I mean, it's just crazy to me. Once you start counting the things that we can appreciate, I think the thief of joy is comparison. A lot of us have heard that. I just feel like when you compare, for me right now, this is crazy too, right, Krista? Because I think of things in my head that everyone thinks that, but it's not always obvious. So that's one of the reasons for me to do, podcasting and share the interviews with my guests, is because I'm thinking I have thoughts that are not always obvious to everybody else. Many people have the same thoughts. Not saying that. I'm just saying something that I realize about self-awareness or about life. Like, some people might not actually realize that. So because I used to be really self-doubting, and I was, I don't need to say that. Everybody knows that. And so I started speaking up, and people go, oh, wow, that's a good point. Okay, thanks for sharing that. I'm glad I heard that. And, obviously you're not everybody's flavor. That just goes with the territory of putting yourself out there. But in terms of, just keeping an optimal physical health to facilitate a healthy mindset is so key. For me personally, if I don't exercise, if like a 3-day period goes by where I don't take the time to invest into my physical health, whether that be exercise, I notice a direct mental effect, obviously, that I think that's been more than well proven in science by now. And for me personally, even though I'm a relatively super fit guy, I still deal with that. And I notice it. I really notice it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have several points. Like, I'm so excited to summarize some of the really awesome sound bites from that. But you led in a perfect opportunity for me to segue into asking you, it sounds like you started speaking up when it wasn't popular to say more things positive, right? Like, if you're around a group of women, sometimes, and we all know how toxic this can be. And I feel like maybe society is shifting, or maybe it's just that I'm not paying attention to those people anymore. I'm not sure which one it is, but
Same.
misery loves company, right? And so
100%.
you view that, and maybe you saw that misery loves company, and you're like, you know what? I'm not going to say it like that, or I'm going to twist it a different way. I'm going to give it a new perspective, right? And so, people they started listening. They thanked you for your sentiments, and then you decided to share this on a larger platform. So I'm curious if that fits into the, what made you, your platform is really talking about supporting people and their health while they pursue passions. Why did you go with that angle? Overall, would you say?
It's a great question. So the biggest reason is because I'm obsessed with helping generous people see the I'm possible. I just kind of came up with this, which basically, instead of impossible, it's like I'm possible. And I got that out of a magazine. I didn't like create that idea. But what I mean by that is, for example, I love seeing kind people winning. And unfortunately, so many times, you may have a picture of a friend come to mind when I talk about this. There are so many incredible people are out there who have an incredible gift to share. But unless they see what's possible, they will die with that gift that's still inside them. It's like, one of the missions I have with the Heart Healthy Hustle is to help bring that out of these people. And I put a large focus on healthy living in every area of life to facilitate a healthy journey. And it's not always easy, right? I share tools with my listeners really that help them to navigate business and life successfully. And then, the daily 1% wins. I help other people achieve. Like, that's why I love it. I just absolutely love it. What I mean by that I mean that if I can help one person shift their perspective on what they see as possible by even 1%, whether that's with their career, their business, or their health, that's a huge win. That's a huge win. I don't know if you've read The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy.
I haven't read that book. I'm
okay,
I'm
but
familiar.
100%. So the concept is those 1%, they change your whole life. And it may not look like much today, but over time, that 1% positive change compounds. And ultimately, it just changes the outcome of that person's life for the better. And that's my fuel. And, that's selfishly, that's what I love. Like if that happens in somebody's life and they never tell me about it, I will be just as grateful. And when people unsolicited come up to you or message you or comment or tell you in a private email, like, hey, I really needed to hear this today. Thank you. If someone's willing to say that to you, especially like you said, in today's day and age of cynicism and misery loves company, that's huge. That don't take those for granted. And so I interview people on my, podcast who are focused on living an optimally healthy lifestyle in order to further facilitate progress in the direction of their dream.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when I hear you talking about that 1%, it makes me think, I just interviewed someone the other day and she said, if you can just be 1% better than yesterday, right? You're talking about helping 1%, right? And it's the whole compound effect, but just being 1% better. I think sometimes we put these big lofty goals on a shelf and we're like, nope, can't make it, can't reach it. And and that's not fair to us, right? We're not necessarily being realistic. If we can just shift one little piece, and sometimes we will shift backwards, and that's okay too. But just making it just a small step forward every single day can be extremely impact. You'll be 365% better by the end of next year.
And it could be a big decision or a smaller one, but those 1%, that should be so encouraging to you as the listeners to understand that 1% is not that much in the day-to-day. It could be the difference of you walking around your block for 5 minutes or doing one push-up. And one question I like for people to ask themselves, and myself I'll ask as well, can I just? So can I just do 1 minute today? Or can I just do this? Can I just, convince my wife or my husband to watch the kids for 2 minutes so I can go in the closet and just take a couple deep breaths after a long day? Like whatever the case may be, like can I just? And those small 1% changes every single day are, life changing, because those are where a lot of your growth can happen and perspective can catch up with the momentum of your busy day, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I feel like we could write that on the mirror so you can fill it in all the time. Can I just do that, right? Because it's so easy to think about what we can't do, but that is switching perspective to focus on everything we can do. So, Jonathan, it feels like you're building so much momentum through your message. What's some of the big things that starting this platform has taught you?
The more I learn, I realize the less that I know. So that's really the truth. Like I'll learn something, and the more I'm learning from these guests and from my own research and just picking the brains of these people, I realize like the less that I know. And that's really freeing, because then I realize, okay, if I'm actually taking the steps to reach out to these experts and all these people, and I'm still feeling like I know less and less. I know more, but I realize I learned more, but I realize I know less about I'm realizing an awareness of like how much I don't know. And it's encouraging, because then I realize if I'm this proactive person doing this, then everyone else is in the same boat. Like everybody's trying to figure it out. Every single person out there is going through the same hard stuff. I learned so much, to be honest. That's the soundbite, but what I've learned from interviewing, I've done over 50 highly successful authors, business moguls, spiritual leaders, things like that. Right by this point in my podcast, it's still newer, but I realized that you can live better today. And that's really where my passion is leading. How do I do this? I do it by following what I call a lily pad approach to life. So how to start playing big in the areas of your life that matter most to you is I prioritize, that's the P, I allocate, that's the A, and then I decide, and that's the D. So the prioritization is what matters most to you. Take 10 minutes, go somewhere alone at night, whatever the case, whatever it takes. Find out what, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to ask you to, prioritize this P, and you gave an example of that. And will you go through allocate and the D for us?
Yeah, that's my next point. So allocate your time and resources to the things that matter most today. Because I was talking, this is crazy. Like, You ever have it where like you realize something and then you have a conversation with your friend like 6 months later and it solidifies what you had already realized 6 months prior?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's
or like
crazy.
A week later.
Exactly. Or day, whatever it is. Yeah. And so today I'm talking to my roommate at breakfast. We're having coffee. The sun's coming through the room. And, he works, he schedules his own hours. He actually works a very demanding job, but he does it in a way that works for him. And he was sharing with me, he's like, hey, I used to work so hard, and I realized the harder I worked in his specific field, mind you, if you're in sales and your commission goes up because you worked harder, that's a different situation. But his field, if he worked harder, it didn't change anything except how tired he was and how much people were relying on him. So he enjoyed the notoriety that came with that. But then he realized, I don't need that notoriety. I'd much rather have a healthy, enjoyable life. So he worked with the hours, and he still works the same job. It's a high demanding job. But it was just amazing to talk with him and hear that he's in his 30s. And I'm just talking to him. I'm thinking to myself, this guy learned how to allocate. So with allocation, it's this: allocate your time and resources to the things that matter most. What's going to provide you a richer life now? Maybe a better mattress. Allocate funds to purchasing foods that will give you more energy. Cut spending on eating out. I don't believe diets, whether that's for financial or nutritional, they don't work. They just don't, because they are a short-term thing. It's always maintenance. And that's something that working out taught me, was it's maintenance. So you get to a certain level, you say, this is awesome. I love this, but now I realize I have to maintain it week in, week out, and it's a lifestyle. So if you're not willing to make that lifestyle change, that's why so many people get derailed. They do the diet and it doesn't work. Same for the finances. And we have to find replacements. That's a big thing. That's another thing against diets for me, is replacements. And, obviously there are certain diets that do help. I'm not saying that that's not the case. That certainly are things that have changed people's lives, and that's fantastic. I'm so grateful for that. My opinion on diets as a whole is that, what I shared just now. And then if you're willing to be self-aware and dive deep and develop your self-awareness, you can find ways to allocate your time and resources more effectively. You just can. There's no I can't. There's no way. You don't know my life. I don't know your life, but I can guarantee you can find some ways to allocate your time and resources maybe more effectively, or in a way that will facilitate, it will help you to live better today. So for me, that was buying a nice mattress and downsizing my apartment. That's what I did. And stuff like that, like being willing to take those leaps is scary, but it's easier for me. I'm a single guy right now. I get it. But if you're listening and you're like, I have a family, let's look at other ways. There's other ways. The D in pad. So lily pads, I'm obsessed with. Growing up, I used to go to this water park. Okay. And they had lily pads, which are floating. Have you ever seen these, Krista?
Oh yeah, at those water parks that I fall off of every time. Yeah.
Exactly. So literally, me and my buddies would try to sprint across them all in one leap. We were those obnoxious kids, knocking other kids off and falling and hurting ourselves. So what I realized from that is that life is a series of lily pads, and the D for pad is decide. So I believe decision is one of the greatest enemies to anxiety. So if you're out there, you're struggling with anxiety, it may be scary to make concrete decisions for you, but what's the alternative? You're already anxious by not making the decision. Am I right? So if you're anxious anyway because you failed to make a decision, then what will you lose by making a decision? So try to go from autopilot to decision maker. And remember, without making a decision, you cannot move. You'll stay stuck in a season. Each lily pad represents a season. So watch this. Decisions allow you to set yourself up to win. Decide to embrace where you are right now, and you need each and every season you're in to prepare for where you're going. So each season is a chapter, a job that you go through in your life. Is just a parking spot, whether you're in a bad relationship, whatever it may be. It's just a lily pad. So you're supposed to keep jumping to the next lily pad. And once you learn what you were supposed to learn on a single lily pad, you should jump to the next one in faith and live fully in each season. So even if it's a hard season that you don't like, do your best in every way possible to embrace it. Let others help you. Let other people help you. Be willing to leave behind what you're good at in order to find what you're the best at, what you're best at. You know what I mean? That was huge for me to realize that.
Right. To be able to shift in order to live your full purpose, right?
Yeah, for sure. And the situation or problem that occurs when we don't give it our all in each and every lily pad season, even the hard ones that we hate, the jobs that we can't stand, the bosses who are jerks, is that we can get stuck on a lily pad. So what happens to the lily pads? They get old. They're strong when they're young. They hold up the weight, but they're not meant to hold or support you for more than a season. They die. So if you refuse to take life by the horns while you're on a lily pad you don't particularly like, then you sabotage your own confidence in your leaping ability. So then what happens when it comes time to make the leap to the next season in your life? That next lily pad, you're not ready, and you allow fear to keep you from jumping, and you stay stuck in that miserable season. and then you become stagnant and you struggle to maintain the support as the lily pad dies because its season has ended. And that's my belief that it's largely the reason why so many people are unhappy in their day-to-day life.
Yeah, because they just stay on the same pad. I love this analogy. It's a good analogy to like write pad, prioritize, allocate, and decide, and apply it to different sections or pieces or seasons of life, or however you choose to do that.
100%. And the biggest thing about lily pads, like I was talking with you before about what it actually is, they're like they're pads that float in the water for kids to play on. So enjoy your life. Lily pad jumping is supposed to be fun. It's going to be sloppy. It's silly, but it's so fun. So you definitely are going to slip. You're definitely going to bust your butt. You're going to fall. You will fall, but you can always climb back on top and try it again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So Jonathan, there were some great sound bites here. One of them, was the lily pad thing we just talked about. The other one, I was thinking, I always write notes when I'm talking to someone. It was really perspective about, life isn't happening to you, it's happening for you. And so instead of, gratitude isn't just thankfulness. This is an aha moment for me. Gratitude isn't just thankfulness. It's really appreciation, and appreciation is a moment. So Jonathan, one of the questions that everyone gets is like, if you're speaking today and people feel like, gosh, I hadn't thought about it in this manner before, or this guy's speaking my language, or something to that extent, what's your gut reaction of something you'd want to leave them with today to make their life 1% better for tomorrow?
I personally would say just embrace the unknown, strive to live an excellent life in congruence with what you say you believe. For me, I'm a man of faith, and I'm also very flawed, imperfect, and I make mistakes every single day. And achieving excellence in my work, then I won't feel confident that I'm representing God well. So I don't place my confidence in my own confidence. I don't place it in my money, my skills. In my opinion, it's a fatal mistake. So I would just say, assess what you're placing your confidence in, and then you don't have to worry if it's going to reveal something scary to you, because if it does, it's ultimately going to be for the greater good of your life. So if you ask yourself, what am I placing my confidence in? And then say, at the end of the day, I've been blessed with an opportunity to live the best life possible. I see it as my ethical duty to live that out. That's my personal thing. I don't hold people to the same standard. In fact, if I was to say something to my younger self, I would say, stop putting people on pedestals, and everyone's going through similar trials and insecurity, and judging people doesn't serve you. Put it in one sentence, keep your word.
Mm-hmm. Got it. I like it. Gratitude isn't optional. It is kind of non-negotiable, right? Because you need to have appreciate in order to have these positive emotions. You have to embrace that appreciation. So, well, thank you so much, Jonathan. I feel like you're sort of a motivational speaker in the process. I feel like that's your calling a little bit. I think you're already doing that, right, with your platform. So thanks for coming on today to talk about gratitude and perspective and how you see that affecting your people, just all people, right? So, and the importance of kind of self-care and those types of things. So, Jonathan, where can people find you?
Yes, for sure. And thank you so much for having me on. It's been a blast. You guys can find me at my website. It's triplehpodcast.com. So that's hhhpodcast.com. And then we're very active on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube, but Instagram's a lot more fun. So just follow us at Heart Healthy Hustle.
Cool. Very good. All right, Jonathan. Thanks so much, and we'll talk to you again soon.
One of the best gifts you could give us at the Less Stress Life is your feedback. We are paid in podcast reviews. If you enjoyed this or any other episode, please leave us a review. In the iTunes store or from your podcast app, just search for Less Stress Life, as if you're not already subscribed. Click on the banana face image, scroll to the bottom where it shows the text of other reviews, and write a review. While you're there, hey, make sure you hit subscribe. For Android or Stitcher users, you gotta go to the desktop site and search for Less Stress Life, and then scroll down to leave a review. Stitcher doesn't load Apple reviews on their site, so if you want, you can leave a review in both places. Your feedback means a lot to the success of the show. Thanks so much for taking the time to do that. You rock.